So this happened. Yeah, we're going to talk about Prime 4 now. This one's going to be a bit more laid back, so if you hear anything in the background, I apologize. But that's what it's like living with a family. You probably know that. So, where to even begin? There's not really a place to begin, because this image is literally all we have to go off of for the first time in 5 years. Can you believe that? So what I'm going to try and do is kind of gather my thoughts into what I'd like to see and maybe not want to see from Prime 4. Not that my opinion will have any influence on the game, but you know, it's fun. Alright, let's get the first but obvious one out of the way. I want the gameplay to be akin to Prime and Echoes, alone on a planet with different biomes. You've got your usual fire, forest, ice places, but I want something a bit more interesting. Maybe something akin to an abandoned Phazon factory, where liquid Phazon would have gone through the center. Since, you know, Phazon isn't really around anymore. And I'd want these areas to be really interconnected, and make sense given what the world would have gone through, either during corruption or just in general. And even if it is going to reuse a fire, ice type thing, I'd want it to be used in a unique way. Not just, oh, there's snow. I think the next thing I really want is a really good soundtrack, especially coming off of the heels of the really disappointing soundtrack for Dread. Don't get me wrong, there are still good songs, and if you want some examples, look at my latest video. It's not great. Prime holds itself up to a higher standard when it comes to its soundtrack, and I really want that reflected. I want some bops and vibes, you know? Funny thing is, I'd written these notes way before the image surfaced, but a thing I said I wanted was Samus's Echo suit, and yeah, I think I got that. Another little thing I'd want is a day-night cycle. I say little as if that'd be easy to implement. But no, a day-night cycle would be a really unique addition to the Metroid Prime franchise, and Metroid in general. You could have it so different creatures come out at night and a specific time of day, different enemies overall. Even certain mechanics in the game could reflect the day-night cycle. It'd be really interesting to see what they could do with it. Are you seeing where the laid-back part is coming in? Another thing I'd really like is more visors, and I don't just mean, oh, I want to select from 8 different visors, as cool as that would be, but I'd want more creative visors as opposed to just X-ray, thermal, command. You gotta have the scan visor, obviously, but I'd like something more unique, so something like night vision would be new for the franchise and would make sense if there is a day-night cycle. I'd like more scannables and lore, like maybe more Chozo, but ideally a whole new species that has gone either extinct or even ambiguous. That would be really cool. I'd want it to be as in-depth as the Luminoth lore and their history and stuff like that. Like, did you know that the Luminoth communicate through sign language and the symbols are representations of their sign motions? Yeah, neither did I. I think in terms of story, I'd want it to be handled very similarly to Echoes, where it's a bit more laid back, but there's still key story elements, and there's not just like in Prime. I want to have a reason to go after Silex, presuming he's the main villain. Speaking of which, I'm interested to see how he'd be depicted, and I want him to have presence. One of my main gripes with Ravenbeak is that he just wasn't there right up until the end. So I'd like to see Silex actually get stuff done and kind of mirror what Dark Samus is doing in the Prime games, where she would appear and actually mess you up if you weren't prepared. I'd also like for there to be a good reason for why Samus loses her upgrades, if she starts with any at all. Be it because Silex attacks her, drains her abilities, stuff like that. I just want there to be a good reason, you know, like the Ing stealing her weapons is really cool. Her just losing them because she like had to have a completely different suit like in Fusion. I just like something really cool, but also something that would make sense for her to lose her abilities and not just a little boom that goes off and she loses her abilities. If you know me, I don't like the Zero suit that much. So if it is going to be in this game, please give it a good design. Please. Thank you. Don't worry, I will get to the comments of that video because, oh, I have some things to say. To kind of go back on story, I forgot to mention this bit, but I hope that there's a solid connection to the 2D games. So, particularly Samus Returns if Prime 4 is to be the last Prime game, or the last game before the mainline games come in. And I'd wonder if it would be the last straw for the Federation. Like, what happens in Prime 4 is the ultimate reason why Samus goes on onto SR388 to wipe out all the Metroids. That'd be kind of cool. That way canon posters can't take things horrifically out of context and say Prime isn't canon anymore. Who thought? I'd also like a unique item progression, so no plasma beam, no wave beams, no gravity suit. I'd like something tied to the lore and story of the world that Metroid Prime 4 is set on. Akin to what happens in Echoes, where you get the light suit, the dark suit, and beams of the same name. I'd like something like that. I'm kind of tired of the whole plasma, ice, wave. Okay, this is a massive departure considering this is Halo, but this is relevant. I want first-person shooter style controls, and there's a very big reason for that. The controls in the Prime games, they're very stiff, but they really work when used with first-person shooter controls, as demonstrated in my other videos that highlight that. And I'll have cards for that at the top right. I want to preface that this would not be at the expense of like what Metroid is known for, and that's exploration. It should be to enhance what's already there, but also to kind of implement what the 2D games kind of do. So it kind of emulates that. So I've got Halo 5 here. I know it's very weird, but just stick with me. So the Shine Spark, that's always been, and Speed Boost in general, that's always been a bit difficult to recreate in the Prime formula. Just look at Halo Infinite. Like, not Halo Infinite, fucking Halo 5. Like, you have the boost, you literally have a boost, but you also have sprint. But the key thing is, okay, so that just charged through that. That could be the Shine Spark or Speed Boost or whatever. It can do that. There's also Slide, which is now in Dread. It can work, but the best part is you Shine Spark through that, Clamber. Okay, there's in Prime 3, there are ledge grab stuff, but it's very limited, and it's like it had to have a completely different texture, so you'd know you could grab and clamber that. Yeah, clamber that. Jesus, I'm doing this live, so it's a bit more strenuous. That only made me want to do it more, and because the 2D games use it so often, it kind of feels weird to not include this into Prime now, especially so freely. That just kind of emulates the red doors for the rockets. Okay, so that could be broken as well. Ah, and so we, like previously, you would have got the missile upgrades. Shine Spark as well. And then you go down, and then you're in a whole new area. So that's just basically a kind of slight example of how it could really do it. Implementing like first-person shooter controls while still allowing for that Metroid-y feel to it. And just because I can, I want to highlight what else I want to show. Well, I want to highlight what else I'd want to see in Prime 4. So I'd also like to see a melee. Prime needs it, because there are so many instances in the first 3 games where an enemy will just run at your face and you can't do anything about it. So I think, and Dread's gone through with the melee counter, so just knock them back. And then you're good. hey, I'm having to record this bit because while I was playing this, my computer would not shut up. But the thing I was basically saying is I would like for Prime 4 to run at 60 FPS. The ones on the GameCube and Wii did it. It would be really nice to have Prime 4 do the same, because that's partly part of the replay value. That's a good sentence. I would also like for the grapple beam to kind of be reworked into a grapple hook, like in Halo Infinite. It would just allow for so much, like, exploration potential. You could even have it so you can bring weapons to you, power-ups, stuff like that. Even bring enemies to you or use enemies like how Halo Infinite does it, or even Doom. I think that'd be a really neat feature. It's kind of, the grapple beam is kind of limited in, so far anyway, to grapple points and blue magnetic parts of the map, like in Dread. I would like to see that expanded upon. And the final thing I want to see from Prime 4 is that I want Retro to take their time with this game. I know all of us want this to be out as soon as possible, even I do. But this game needs to be incredible. Not to put any pressure on Retro, but Prime does hold itself to a higher standard than most games. So I want it to be as good as it can be, and for it to take as long as they need. Now for the things I kinda don't want to see in the game. So this one will be a lot quicker because there's not much I don't want to see, because I'm kind of open to ideas, but these are the things that I definitely don't want to see. I don't want to see any previously established bosses besides Silex and maybe Weevil if the Space Pirates are involved. I don't want to see Phazon, no Dark Samus. I don't want to see Quadraxis or whatever for no reason. I want this to be its own thing. But I want it to tap into the whole post-Phazon story, because the galaxy would have been affected by this quite heavily, especially the Space Pirates. I want this game to delve into that side of the story. And again, no Dark Samus, she's dead. That would kind of make corruption unnecessary and cheapen the ending. I don't want that. Another thing I don't want to see, Samus with high heels. Please let this be a trend that Samus no longer has it. Please, for the love of God, Smash, you have done so much wrong for Samus, and you, Other M, you're not innocent. Okay, let's get back to the important stuff. So, like I said earlier, I don't want to see the usual forest, ice, lava places. I want more things. I want more biomes. I want more creativity, because Echoes, it has a foresty jungle place, but it's more of a swamp, and there's two different versions. One's a poisonous lake, the other is ransacked by all sorts of animals, and it's in the middle of like this facility that kind of purifies the air. It's different to Talon Overworld. It's not at all the same. Like I said, I want them to be more creative if they are going to use the forest, ice, lava ideas. What I'd really like is more niche biomes. For example, Samus Returns has the massive crystal caves. That would be amazing to see at higher detail and in first person. Can you imagine the spectacle there? I also don't want to see Samus speak unless it's necessary, because Dread handled this perfectly. She spoke, but in a moment where it was absolutely necessary, and the way it was handled, her speaking Jozo, was flawless. It wasn't unnecessary, and it was a really welcome addition that really cemented Samus as one of the greats to me. Not to mention it's one of the best scenes in all of Metroid, but you know. If they are going to make Samus speak though, I want it to be important. Save Samus speaking for when it's important. Don't give us monologues, that's just annoying. Have it be like a one line, this, okay, she said something that she means it. Have it be like that. Same with Samus's face. I want it to be that she reveals her face, not so much as a reward, but when it serves an emotional and story-driven purpose. Look at The Mandalorian. Now this one is definitely going to be controversial, but I don't want Prime 4 to be open world. I really don't. And I have several reasons as to why. First of all, I want the game to look great as well as run well. Open world games aren't fit for either. Look at Breath of the Wild. Yes, it's great, but the performance is so inconsistent. Especially in the Korok Forest, oh my god. Halo Infinite as well, the open world areas are easily the worst parts of the game to me. Not only does it run worse, it also just looks ugly at times because the game has to lower itself in terms of resolution, and that's naturally part of my end, but it makes sense. Games don't struggle with corridors, and Prime handles this effortlessly. Look at, like, as much as we meme it, the doors. They mask loading times, but the areas where you are, they still hold up today, and it's incredible. The doors are there for a reason. It's so the next area and the one you're in can load properly, while still looking good and running properly. Second thing, open worlds tend to be empty and bland, something that is not allowed in Prime in my eyes. Prime standard is near enough an autistic level of attention to detail, and I could say that. Every part of the game is looked at, and it has to benefit either the world building, the immersion, and etc. It can't just be an open field with grass. There has to be a tree that goes underground, and then that tree trunk goes into the under caverns of another area. It has to be like that. And again, I don't want this game to be rushed. I'm sick of seeing games be rushed. Halo Infinite is the prime example of this. It needed at least another year. A lot of people will say, oh, it needs to be released now. No. The launch content, the campaign is great, don't get me wrong. But, oh my god, the multiplayer. I don't need to say much, do I? Forge isn't out, co-op campaign isn't out. Don't rush this game, Retro, please. I beg of you. So that kind of covers the things that I want to see and don't want to see in Metroid Prime 4. This game, it's existed for 5 years. Overall, it had to restart 3 years ago, and then Retro suddenly puts out this piece of art. And this is 100% art for Metroid Prime 4, because no area in the previous Prime games looks like this. So it's not a tease of like a Prime remake or anything like that. This is Metroid Prime 4, and I cannot emphasize how excited I am, especially because there's actual detail here. And by that I mean, not only is Samus there, it looks like the Prime 2 Varia suit. And I say Prime 2 because the Corruption version is slimmer and looks taller. Echoes' version is much more bulky, as is shown here. But the most interesting part, the shadow underneath Samus, that's not Samus' shadow. That's Sylux. Especially if you look where her arm cannon is supposed to be in the shadow. It doesn't match. It looks like Sylux's arm cannon type thing. So that's Sylux, that's 100% Sylux, and I cannot wait to see more. Again, Retro, please take your time. Nintendo, give Retro all the time that they need, all the support they need. I want this game to be as good as possible. And I have full faith in Retro that it will be. Because if it wasn't, we would have had a restart by now. But we're seeing art. Something's there. They have something. And I'm beyond excited. So, let me know what you guys think about this video. Do you like the ideas that I proposed? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more, I'll have another video soon talking about the Samus design. Yeah, that's going to be fun. So let me know what you think, especially about the gameplay stuff, because I have very strong opinions on that. So that's going to be it from me. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.